Welcome to the Untypical Parent Talks to Herself, the podcast for typically untypical parents. I'm Liz Evans and I am the Untypical OT and I'm your host. And in these bite-sized solo episodes, we're going to dive into real talk about parenting in additional needs families. No fluff, no judgment, just the stuff that matters. Because let's face it, there's absolutely no rule book that works for the wild ride that we'll find ourselves on as parents in additional needs families. So let's shake things up, let's share some of the laughs and the hard stuff, and get the support we all need in this untypical journey. Are you ready? Come join me. Hello and welcome back. This episode is a continuation. So one of the episodes from a couple of weeks ago was called Dyslexic Parenting. And I split this one up into two different episodes. The last episode, which you might want to go and back and listen to, but actually you can listen to them both separately without having watched them in sequence, or you can watch them however you want to watch them. But it might be worth going back to have a look, because the last time I was on, I spoke about dyslexia and how it impacts my parenting at home, in the home with the kids. And this time I was going to talk about how my dyslexia impacts me when I'm having to deal with systems that are inaccessible for us as dyslexic parents. And I'll just touch briefly, just in case people hadn't tuned into the previous one, that my reasoning for doing this is there's often a lot of talk around the needs of autistic parents, of ADHD parents, and whilst that needs to be so much better, what I often don't hear, and I haven't heard as a dyslexic parent, is how dyslexia is impacting parenting and our ability to parent. Not ability, that's not the right word. I don't like that word. Our capacity to parent. So last time I talked about the impact that had at home, but actually how it had brought about conversations for us as a family that opened up conversations around neurodiversity, brains working differently, and how we will complement each other within our family. That as a parent, I can talk to my kids about not being perfect, about finding things difficult, but that doesn't make me less of a parent. It doesn't put demands on my children. But what it does do is open up conversations and a reality that allows them to recognize that adults, you don't grow from a child where we make mistakes to being a parent or an adult that doesn't make mistakes, because we are human and we will always make mistakes. So that was kind of where my last mini podcast was, where I left off from, was talking about the impact and how we manage that in our home environment. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about was how dyslexia has impacted me when dealing with systems. And when we live in additional needs families, we are often, if our kids are struggling and have additional needs, we are often having to deal with systems like local authority systems, government systems, tribunal systems, the HEP systems, all of those things. But also, what I've come to realize more recently as well is that as a dyslexic adult, I'm still coming in contact with systems. So it might be things like being, accessing my bank, or it might be applying for something, or it might be understanding a contract that I'm signing. All those things that still have an impact on me as a parent and being able to make the right decisions for myself and my family. So one of the kind of key ones probably will be, and this might be useful for professionals maybe that are listening, that you might not have thought about, how could I support a dyslexic parent? And a lot of actually, I don't think even I ever told school I was dyslexic, so they would never have known. But I suppose it's how we make things as accessible as possible for neurodivergent brains. how can we support those parents? So the biggest thing I used to find really difficult was things like letters, emails, reports, all that kind of thing. So what I really struggle with is the reading from it. So I very, very quickly lose track in an email. It jumps around all over the place. I've started at the beginning. I've not, I've got halfway down and thought, what was it they were saying? And I've had to go back and reread it again. And I get used to get caught with this one because, especially when you're in systems like, and you know you need things written down, you'll know what I mean by that. So if you've ever had to go through kind of VHEPs and tribunals and stuff like that, you need it written down. Is that I'm often better chatting things through because I can ask questions. Even then, sometimes I'm a bit of a processor, so I will listen to something and I can't respond in the moment. I need to be able to come away and think about it, and then the questions will come for me. So it's kind of, I suppose, having an array of different options. So it's good to have it written down because it means I can go back and look at it again. But equally, it will take me a while to be able to decipher from that what I need from it, if that makes sense. I'm much better, and this might be a tip if you're dealing with dyslexic parents, is that I often find it better with bullet points. I find it very, very difficult when I get an email that's like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, and I'm having to pull out what is the important information. So, for example, when I read books, I'm terrible because I write in books and sticky them and underline things. But for me to be able to get out, extract the information that's important to me and that I need, I have to pull it out in some way. And I can't do that just by reading. I have to have a system to do that. And that is usually I have to underline it, highlight it, talk it out loud, make notes from it, to be able to kind of take that information and use it. So I'm much better, and I love a bullet point. And when I used to write, when I used to do reports, which I don't do anymore, but when I did reports, I would often use bullet points because it was an easier way for my brain to process it, and I could pull out the important information and have it there, rather than feeling like I have to wade through all this talking and all this written language to find out exactly what it is you're meaning to say to me. So bullet points really help for me when I get an email. Don't do great big one long waffly, writing, short to the point, and highlight those bullet points for me so I can see them in what I need to do. And if there's something that you need me to do, bullet point that too. Because again, if I have to pull it out of information, my reading is one, slow, and two, I get lost and I don't always hold on to that bit of information that I need to do. So the easiest way, the best way to kind of get that information across is to keep it short, succinct, to the point, and bullet point it to make it easier for that person to understand. So things like you often get like this letters from school that are so long that I just think, what? What is it I'm meant to do in that? And I've had to read the letter 4 times. The other thing is everything now is sent home on email. I'm often looking at it on a phone, which is teeny, and I'm getting old now, I need my glasses. So I haven't got my glasses, I can't read it properly. And then I think, oh, I'll come back to that. And then I don't because I forget about it and it's gone. So bullet points are a real lifesaver for me and make things a lot easier for me if if people will bullet point things for me, or if I can bullet point things. So if I'm trying to take some information, how can I pull that out? I put it into bullet points, but it takes a lot of time. And then things like letters and reports. Again, reports from professionals can be really tricky when you're navigating systems, trying to pull out exactly what it is they are saying. Now, some of you will know there are reports out there that are written like that. So you have absolutely no idea when you get to the end what it is they're actually saying your child needs. But I like to think that there are reports out there that are very good reports that are well written with a lot of information in. Again, summaries make such a difference. summaries with bullet points that are easy to access. And I know then that if I've got a summary point that I think, oh, okay, I need to know a bit more about that, then I can go back to that little bit and I can just read that little bit because I can guarantee you I will not read that whole report in one go. It will take me forever to get through that report. I'll take a highlighter to it, I'll take an underliner to it, and it's going to take me forever to get through it. So just kind of it's just asking people to be mindful that when you are presenting information and giving information to dyslexic parents, or you think they could be dyslexic, is thinking about how you do that. Some people, like my son's school at the moment, the head teacher sends home, they don't do news letters anymore. He does a video one. Um, what do I think about that one? I would like a transcript that went with it, if I'm honest. I find the video ones quite distracting. I end up looking in the background and thinking, oh, what's that? And getting distracted by what he's actually talking about. But it is quite a nice way that if you're struggling with reading, a video newsletter it could be helpful for other people. I better with something written and that I can watch. I need both. That I can follow along with, and I need bullet points. And again, don't make it too waffly if you're talking to me because I won't follow it. Again, that's my working memory. So you'll give me bits of information. If it's long and detailed and waffly, I can't hold on to it. I describe my working memory as that everybody else has kind of got like an A4 piece of paper that they can pin stuff to and manipulate and think, oh, I'll put that there and then I can bring that bit in and move that around. Yeah. Do you know what size mine is? Postage stamp sized. Tiny. I can't get it all on there. And stuff gets dumped so I can put other stuff on there and I forget other things. So that's how I liken my working memory difficulties is to this postage stamp size that I've got, and everyone else has got an A4 page that they can put all this information on and manipulate stuff. So that's a couple of things. What else came up for me was filling in forms. So filling in forms, I hate. I find these so difficult. And I haven't found an easy answer to this other than I often ask for help. I misjudge the questions. I misinterpret. I'm not quite sure what it is they're getting at. The amount of times over the couple of years that I've filled out forms for the kids now, and people have come back to me and said, I've never had anyone fill out a form like that. Because I find it really difficult to extract what it is they're actually asking to me. And I will read that sentence over and over and over and over again, trying to understand specifically what it is they are asking me. And a lot of the time I have to ask for help. So I'll ring a family member or my partner or something and to say to them, can you just tell me exactly what it is they're asking? And they'll go, yeah, they're just asking blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, I've just spent 20 minutes looking at that question, trying to work out what it is. And I remember that at school when we were doing maths and they used to give those stupid questions. If Polly had this and Fred had that and Gertrude had the next, and I'd be like, what? Because I couldn't hold on to the information long enough to be able to use the next bit to manipulate it. So forms for me are really tricky. So think about forms. If you're asking parents to fill out lots of forms, that can be tricky. If you are a parent, ask some help. And I have been known when I can't get hold of somebody, I put the question into ChatGTP or any other AI. I'm not promoting ChatGTP, any other AI, and say, what is it they are exactly asking me? And if you've got a gist, I think they're asking me this. Can you confirm? The other thing to do is that you go back to the person. I find that difficult. Some people don't. They're quite happy to go back and ask. But if you're dealing with big systems, it's trying to get hold of somebody. I was trying to fill out DLA form for my son. I've got a question in there that I was struggling with. I didn't really know what they were asking. I can go back to them. Do you know how long it took me to get hold of them in the first place? So I had to ring somebody in the end to get some help. That's where I prefer to go, if I ring someone. But when I get really stuck, I ask AI and it does help me out. But just be mindful that AI doesn't always get it right. So that's why I tend to put, this is what I think it's asking me. Can I just double check? And then you can always double check it later down the line. So I get quite a lot of misinterpretations. So I have misunderstood something. I'm much better when people phone me or speak to me or do it online now. And what's great about things like Teams and things like that now is that you can put the AI co-host on and it will take notes for you during the meeting. So I can still have that conversation with somebody. It doesn't have to be via email, but there's still a record and a documentation of it. So I use that a lot as well. That can be really helpful when you think, actually, I'd rather speak to somebody about this rather than get an email, but I still need it written down. And actually, I can't talk and write it down and then get it all written up. And lots of the time, people don't offer to take notes. And minutes. So think about that. You could use something like Zoom and use the AI co-host. I don't know if that's just for if you've got the paid version. I'm not sure, but that might be worth something to think about. More kind of on the emotional side for me is the feeling of being judged, and I used to feel that a lot. I don't think actually as like I said earlier, I don't think I told any of the boys' schools that I was dyslexic. They wouldn't have known. They might have known from the emails I've sent them. They wouldn't have known from me. I didn't tell them. Um, when I was dealing with the local authority, when I was dealing with tribunal, I didn't tell them that I was dyslexic. I probably should have done, actually, especially when we were going to tribunal, because they do ask in there, I'm sure they do, about whether you've got any additional needs yourself as a parent attending. And of course, I went, no, none. But actually, I do. And when I was reading documents and stuff like that, it takes me longer. And probably I could have done with letting people know that. So when I was in things like the tribunal, if there was something I needed to have read, I was going to need extra time to read that, and I might need some help to read it. And you can get different systems now as well, and I haven't used them at the moment. I'm still exploring my dyslexia and what works for me and what I need support wise. But I know you can get those reading pens as well now. They can't you that will read aloud the text, and some people find that really useful. So it's having those little things in place that help, all those little bits and pieces. But there was a fear of being judged, and I felt very much that parents, not parents, professionals that I was liaising with would judge me for the way I was writing. And that's come from, if you've heard me talk about dyslexia and my work, that's very much come from that as well, is being judged about the way I wrote things. And I tend to write as I talk. I'm quite casual in the way that I write. I can write more formally, but I find it really difficult. So I felt very judged. And not that anyone ever said anything, but I felt judged. And then the other thing, and the biggest thing for me, was the extra mental effort and the load of managing organisation, working memory, executive functioning, reading, writing. What would take a parent without dyslexia or without those additional needs much less time would take me a huge amount of time. And it is exhausting, absolutely exhausting. And I think it's just being mindful of that, not only ourselves as parents, that is tiring, and that there are strategies out there, there are ways to help. And but also as professionals, when we are liaising with parents, is that we might not know that those parents are dyslexic. And case in point, when I went to my tribunal for my son, I didn't tell the tribunal that I was dyslexic. And looking back now, I think, why didn't you? I should have said something, but I didn't. And I almost kind of felt that, maybe if I had been autistic or ADHD, I would have written something. But because I was dyslexic, well, it wasn't as important. I probably won't say anything. But actually, what I've come to realise as over the last couple of years is a bit how I started off this two-part episodes, is that dyslexia has an impact on all our areas of life. And it's not just in the school and the work environment. It is in our other roles. It is in our parenting role and the impact that it has on our parenting. And when we need to access and be part of or navigate our way through systems that involve lots of writing and reading and executive functioning, dyslexia can have a huge impact. So I think, a bit like I've said before, the bit that I I bring to it with my dyslexia is that I am great with ideas. I am great with finding a way around things. And I think that has stood me in good stead when navigating my way through the systems. Did I come out unscarred? Absolutely not. I don't know many of us that do. But there are positives from it. And I think the biggest thing was knowing how my dyslexia impacted me has meant I can put things in place to try and make things easier. But also, it would be great if professionals, I think, were thinking also about how could they support parents or make things easier to digest in written and writing form and reading and writing formats. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to kind of bring into people's minds that actually dyslexia has an impact on our parenting. And I don't just mean parenting as in how we parent our children, but in the roles that we need to do as a parent. And it might be liaising with and being part of big systems that involve a lot of writing and reading. And I just wanted to bring that to the forefront of people's kind of minds to think about that there are ways to support that. There are ways that we can support parents. I've kind of alluded to a couple of them and chatted a couple of them through as we've during this one part 1 and part 2, and I hope some of those have been helpful. And I think what I'm likely to do is do a bigger talk on dyslexia and the impact of dyslexia just generally across maybe all our occupations. Maybe I need to do that. Maybe I need to do an occupational therapy one about dyslexia and the impact that it has across all our occupations. What helps, what our strengths are in those areas and in those roles and in those occupations, but also where some of those challenges might lie for us as parents. I'm going to leave you. As always, I'm going to thank you for your time. Thanks for joining me. I hope they were helpful, and take care, and I will see you soon. Thank you for listening and choosing to spend your time with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please do share it with a friend who might just feel reassured to know that they aren't on their own. And if you've got a moment, a quick rating or a review helps others to find the podcast too. If you want to stay in the loop with the podcast updates and all things Untypical OT, just drop me an email and I'd be really happy to add you to the list. Take care, and I'll see you soon.